Well, it is now time to talk about the third installment of The Matrix, but is it a terrible movie and a terrible way to end the franchise? Well, I don't think so.
Yo, dudes, the Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could, join it or something.
Hey everyone, Lucamus Prime here. So, it is time for another review in my Matrix movie reviews, and today I'm going to be reviewing what is the third and the final installment at the time for the franchise back in 2003. And the final installment of the original trilogy. And this movie, guys, is going to have to be none other than, of course, 2003's The Matrix Revolution, directed once again by the Wachowskis. And so, now, when it comes to this film, guys, now I'm going to say right off the bat that once again, I think this movie is an underrated sequel, and in my opinion, an underrated conclusion per se, because this was, at the time, the end of the franchise, and to me, it is the end. Absolutely. So, now, how was this film made, guys? So, of course, this film was made back-to-back with The Matrix Reloaded, and was filmed, of course, with it in 2001 and 2002, and of course, it was released in theatres on November the 5th, 2003, which is, of course, the anniversary of this video, because I'm doing this review on the anniversary it's released, which is pretty cool. Released by Warner Brothers, and of course, this was also the first live-action feature film to be released in both regular and IMAX theatres at the same time. Despite receiving mixed reviews from the critics, the film grossed $427.3 million worldwide. So, now when it comes to my initial reaction to this film, guys, so I've seen this movie quite a lot of times in my life. When I first saw it, I thought it was pretty disappointing, in my opinion, really. You know, quite a disappointing way to end the franchise. But when I've rewatched it, and especially from last night's rewatch, in my opinion, it's not as bad, you know, as I thought it originally was. And I've grown to really appreciate and also like this sequel a lot in recent years, especially compared to other terrible franchise endings, like, for example, Disney Wars, The Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi, and The Force Skywalker, which I like to call a sequel trashology of Disney Wars. And also as well, the abominable final season of Game of Thrones as well, among many other terrible franchise finales. But this, in my opinion, was not a terrible franchise finale, and I've grown to appreciate it a lot, especially compared to the absolute abomination from last year, which I call Piss Erections, which I've already ranted about. I don't have to talk about ever again, thankfully. So, now, what is this movie about, guys? So this film, of course, takes place literally seconds after Reloaded ended. And in the continuation, as the dystopia is overrun by robots, Neo, played once again my favourite actor Keanu Reeves, mankind's greatest hope, is trapped in a limbo world, which is called Mobile Avenue. Mobile being an anagram of limbo, basically, which is a pretty cool reference right there. A world where he's trapped in between the worlds of the machines and the Matrix. Meanwhile, the majority of the planet's population remains in a state of suspended virtual reality. The few humans who are cognizant of the grim realities of a world desperately try to hold off their mechanical enemies long enough for Neo to escape and save the day. But things turn disastrous when all-powerful computer program Agent Smith, played by, once again, Hugo Weaving, arrives in the flesh. That flesh, of course, being Bane, the survivor who he simulated in Reloaded. So let's talk about what's great about this film, guys. So once again, the movie once again has a great cast. So Keanu Reeves, as always, does an amazing job playing Neo. This was loving treating him as an actor, and I still love him in the role, even in this movie, guys. He was really great in the role, as always. Yeah, he really nailed it in this movie. I also, as well, once again, love the return of Lawrence Fishburne as Morpheus, and yeah, no matter what, guys, Lawrence Fishburne is the only Morpheus I will ever accept. As far as I'm concerned, he always will be Morpheus, and in this movie, he still does a great job. And also, I once again love Carrie-Anne Moss as Trinity, and she was still an amazing character, one of my favourite female characters in cinematic history, as always, guys. And of course, let's not forget the legendary Hugo Weaving as Smith and his clones. And even though Phil Smith was quite underutilised in this film, really as an antagonist, I still think Hugo Weaving was still amazing as him in this movie. He really was, as always. You know, he really nailed the role. He really did. As for the supporting cast, once again, I definitely love the addition of Jada Pinkett Smith as Niobe. She was still great as Niobe. I also as well love the return of Hal Perrineau as Link. He was once again good as Link, and also Nona Gay as Z as well. And there's many other great supporting characters too in this, so as well. For example, Lambert Wilson and Monica Bellucci return as the Merovingian and Persephone at the beginning of the movie, which was nice to see them return. And also as well, guys, the Oracle appears in this film in a supporting role, but due to Glory Foster sadly passing away in 2001, may she rest in peace, she could not film for this movie, so the Oracle was recast with an actress called Mary Alice, and may she also rest in peace because I think she died early this year. Yeah, rest in peace, Mary Alice. And she was actually really good as a replacement, in my opinion. Really good in the role. I mean, I still like Glory Foster better as the Oracle, but Mary Alice, in my opinion, was a very good substitute, in my opinion. And they did a very good job explaining why she changed her appearance as well in this, because it's explained the reason why she was different is because she's changed her appearance, and we first, of course, see this new appearance, of course, in Enter Matrix, the game, which is pretty cool. And yeah, and that game is definitely a really nice game, and definitely nice with the time to these two films, and it helps it make much more sense if you play that game, really, and yeah. I also, as well, once again loved Anthony Wong as Ghost, and Ghost, in my opinion, is one of my favourite underrated characters in the franchise, but my favourite character who I think is underrated, of course, would have to be Seraph, played once again by Colin Cho, and Seraph was once again really cool in this film, guys, although he doesn't really appear very much in the film, sadly. But he was really cool in this movie, nonetheless. He had really cool fight scenes, and I also love the addition as well, of course, of Gina Torres as Cass, and also Harry Lennox as Commander Locke as well, and Nathaniel Lee as Captain Mifune. He was very good in my opinion as Captain Mifune, especially as well. I do love his speech he gives to the soldiers about to fight in a battle. Very motivational speech in my opinion, yeah. I also like Clayton Watson once again as Kid. He was really good in this movie. I like how this movie gave Kid some development where he actually joined in a battle. I like how he gave him a bit of development. I also as well like the addition as well, once again, of Anthony Zerbe as Councillor Haman, who returns from Reloaded. But sadly, he only appears for like a cameo appearance, which is a bit of a shame, really. I was hoping he'd appear more, but sadly not. But he was still good in his scene, in my opinion. Dave was also good as Captain Roland as well in this, and also as well, Ian Bliss also returns as Bane, who is of course his father, who Smith assimilated, and he's still once again really good in the role, in my opinion. And I gotta say, he does a really amazing job doing an impression of Hugo Weaving and copying the same mannerisms and personality that Smith had. It was really good in my opinion. Yeah, he did a very good job, impersonating Smith really well. The end of the movie also has a cameo appearance as well by Howard Baccatis as the architect once again, which is definitely nice to see. As a way to, further bring closure, because he's the one who, of course, reveals, about, the peace, really, and what's going to happen. Yeah. When it comes to the new character in this film, guys, the movie introduces, at the start of the movie, a family of programs, which, of course, is a little girl called Sati, who is played, of course, by Tamthia K. Atwal. I definitely liked her in this film, and she was played very well by Tamthia, and I liked her scenes interacting with Neo and the Oracle. It was very nice to see. Her parents were also played very well too, in my opinion, as well, in this. And, yeah, it was definitely a nice addition to a cast, really, to have them in the movie. And Neo, of course, recognises her father because he was one of the programs at Merovingian's restaurant in Reloaded. Speaking of the Merovingian's henchmen, we also got introduced to a new one, who of course is the train man, who is of course the train driver, who is responsible for taking programs from a machine world to a Matrix at Mobile Avenue. And he works for a Merovingian, and he stops Neo from getting on the train, of course. Until, of course, Morris, Trinity, and Seraph, they order the Merovingian to give them Neo. And yeah, so... And Bruce Wayne's played his role well, although he didn't really appear very much. And personally, guys, I do like him more as the Mouth of Sauron in the extended version of Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, and also as well in Revenge of the Sith as well, in that movie as well, of course. And the other things he's been into, and also in Mad Max as well. But he was good. He was given, in my opinion, as a train man. He did his best with what he had, despite not really appearing much. In addition as well, when it comes to new characters, we're also introduced to a new machine character, of course, which of course is the Deus Ex Machina, who appears at the end of the movie, who is played by facial motion capture by someone called Henry Blasingame, and he was voiced by Michael Richardson. And Michael Richardson did a very great job voicing the Deus Ex Machina. Really did, in my opinion. I do like him better as Bulkhead in Transformers, but he was really good as a Deus Ex Machina, in my opinion. So, now when it comes to, as well, the action scenes of the film, guys, this film has lots of really awesome action scenes, which make me consider it to be an underrated movie, you know. Like, it's because of the action scenes, which makes me consider it to be underrated, but deserves more love and doesn't deserve the hate, so, yeah. Now, the film has many great ones. For example, I love the opening fight in the first act where Morpheus, Trinity, and Seraph are rescuing Neo, and they infiltrate the Merovingian's club, which is called Club Hell. That fight scene was pretty good as well, but sadly, I think it was the only fight scene in the film for Morpheus and Trinity wearing their Matrix outfits, because, you know, they only went back to Matrix, you know, to rescue Neo, and that was it. They never went back again, so yeah, which is a bit of a shame, really. And the film also has other great scenes as well. For example, now, this film, despite being a Matrix movie, doesn't really take place in a Matrix very much. Most of it takes place in the real world, but we do have some great fight scenes to make up for it. For example, I definitely like the Battle of Zion. It was definitely very good for its time, and I like the addition of these, you know, mech suits. These are definitely pretty cool, in my opinion, really. Very well designed, and I gotta say, the CGI for that fight definitely aged pretty well. And like I said before, I did love Captain Mithune's speech as well before the battle happened, and he sacrificed himself as well. And also as well, I also liked Bane's confrontation with Neo and Trinity on the ship, which of course was the Logos, yeah, which belonged to Niobe. She gave them her ship because she believed they would succeed. And so, and Bane was definitely played very well, and he had a very good fight scene with Neo as well. And that's of course when Neo realised that Bane was assimilated by Smith, and yeah, and it was of course, sadly as well, Neo unfortunately gets blinded in that scene, but he's able to use his powers of a wand to see, yeah, you know, the world really through the vision of a wand. So that was definitely a pretty cool counter attack right there. And in addition as well, now when it comes to the number one highlight of this film, guys, which is probably, in my opinion, the best scene in the entire franchise, it's easily got to be, probably, most definitely, the final fight between Neo and Smith. Like, that scene is easily, in my opinion, the best scene in the whole franchise. Like, that's one of my favourite final fights of all time in cinematic history. Just nailed, and like, the suspense, the tension, the choreography, and the stunts in that scene was just absolutely sick. And the acting by Keanu Reeves and Hugo Weaving was fabulous. Really great to listen to. And yeah, very impressive. And I gotta say, the visuals and the CGI for that fight have definitely aged pretty well for a 2003 movie as well. Really good CGI for it. And in that scene as well, Smith had many great lines, which he says to Neo as well. I mean, he even has a pretty awesome scene as well, near the beginning of the movie, where he confronts Oracle and assimilates her. And yeah, it was definitely a very suspenseful scene where he took over Oracle. And he also, as well, assimilated Seraph and Static off screen as well, because when he's talking to Oracle, he quotes some of their lines that they said before, such as, "Cookies need love like everything does." And then, of course, as well, he refers to Oracle as, you know, "You would know, ma'am." And also, "Yes, ma'am," when she says, "Do what you're here to do." And then when this Oracle gets assimilated into a Smith, who of course has her powers of foresight and also the ability to fly, he does a very evil laugh, which is definitely very scary, and like makes him such an amazing villain. You know, like, like, wow, like, because even though Smith doesn't really appear much in the film, guys, Hugo Weaving still makes him such a great villain, as always. Just an incredible villain, in my opinion. And he also has a really cool welcome back line to Neo when he returns in the final fight, where he says, "Mr. Anderson, welcome back. We missed you." Oh, man. And of course, as well, when when Neil punches him into the ground and then he flies back up, he of course yells, "This is my world, my world!" And yeah, oh man. Like, that fight scene I could rewatch all day. Like, it's the one scene that I love the most, which I'm most excited to rewatch when I'm rewatching this movie. Because, yeah, I only do a marathon of original trilogy, guys, and that's it. Because Resurrections to me is non-canon garbage. And I also love Smith's speech he says to Neo as well about, you know, why does he keep fighting when it's pointless to keep going? And Neo says, because I choose to. Which I think is very motivational how he keeps going, really. Then also Smith's line where he says he's seen the end. And then, of course, he paraphrases a quote by Oracle, which I definitely do love. And which also further helps me, you know, cement my opinion that this is the end of the franchise. Because she says to Neil, everything has a beginning, has an end. And Smith says that exact same line later on. It's in that moment that Neo realises that, you know, the only way, you know, for it to end is if he gets assimilated by Smith. And we also get a very satisfying villain defeat, of course, where Smith does unfortunately simulate Neo, and he thinks he's won. Then all of a sudden, the machines recognise Smith's code, and then they eliminate him from the system. It fires a powerful surge energy into Neo's body in the real world, which unfortunately sacrifices his life. And it causes the Neo Smith, who's been assimilated, to then break up in a white light and explode. Then, after that, Oracle Smith is like saying, no, it's not fair. He looks up and then he sees the other Smiths, you know, starting to blow up too and light up. Then he lights up too, and then they all die. And I gotta say, the ending of this movie is somewhat decent as well, really, because at the end of the movie, Neo has sacrificed his life and the war is over. We get people celebrating, and Morpheus can't believe it to be true. You know, he doesn't know if it's real, but it is real. The war is over. And everyone is so thankful for the Neo ending the war. And then Neo's body is then carried away respectfully by machines. And yeah, and I always like to pretend that that's not what Resurrection was doing, where they were taking his body away to be rebuilt. No, definitely not. As far as I'm concerned, guys, his body was being carried away out of respect by machines after he ended the war. They respected him for that. And when it comes as well to the final scene of the film, we of course see the Oracle in a park in the Matrix where the architect meets her. And we also get a confirmation that the people can leave the Matrix if they want to. So that further helps me cement my opinion that this is the end of the franchise as well. Then the Oracle reunites with restored Sati and Seraph. And what one detail I love about that scene is I love how, you know how in the films in the Matrix is seen we have that green tint filter to show it's a Matrix? Well, in the scene, guys, the filter's gone. And that's a very nice detail to show that the war is over and the franchise has ended, really. And then at the end of the movie, Oracle says she believed that Neo would win. She believed it, and yeah, she believed right, because he ended the war. And that's the end of the movie, really. Other great things besides the scenes in the film, guys, is also probably, as well, the music. I once again loved Don Davis' music in this. Real great to listen to. He once again collaborated with Juno Reactor, and I love the music in this that they did together. For example, I really love the music which plays in Neo Smith's final fight, which is called Neo Dämmerung, which is translated from German as Twilight of Neo, which is pretty cool. I think it's a reference to a song called Gotte Dämmerung, which I believe is a German word for Twilight of the Gods, whereas here it's called Neo Dämmerung, which is pretty cool detail. I also as well love the credits music called Navras, which is definitely really awesome. I love that music. I listen to it quite a lot, especially as well Neo Dämmerung as well. And the rest of the music is also great, like the main theme in the intro with the green symbols, and also as well, the music in the Club Hell fight is also nice to listen to as well. And yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, guys, I think this is a very underrated movie that deserves more love. But, of course, while it may be a film I love, there's unfortunately some bad qualities I still have with it, which is why I regard it as probably the weakest original trilogy, but not as bad in my opinion as Resurrection, which in my opinion was garbage. So bad qualities is, now, there is one problem I have with this film, guys, which of course is with regards to portraying other characters, because I feel this movie kind of doesn't really focus much on, you know, on our main heroes, which is a bit of a shame, really, because it focuses way too much on the new characters, really, rather than the main characters, because this is supposed to be a Matrix movie, guys, about the main characters, and it doesn't really focus much on them, really, which is a bit of a shame. So, didn't really like that. There is like a big portion of the film where Neo and Trinity do not appear because the Battle of Zion's happening. We don't see them for quite some time, which is a bit of a shame, really. Also, when it comes to Smith, guys, so despite, you know, a great performance like Hugo Weaving, I feel he was very underused because unless you count the scenes with Bane, guys, Smith only appears in 2 scenes played by Hugo Weaving. Of course, Weaving is Oracle near the beginning of the movie. Then, of course, he appears at the end of the movie in the final fight with Neo, and that's it. So I feel Hugo Weaving was quite underused, really, but made up for it by his great acting, though. I also as well feel that some characters introduced into Matrix were quite underused too, like Ghost, for example. I feel was underused, a bit of a shame, really. So I was hoping he'd have more screen time because I thought he was underrated as Ghost, one of the underrated characters who I love, especially because Enter Matrix. And also as well, because as well, when it comes to Trinity, guys, so, oh yeah, this leads on to a big quality I have, which really angers me about a movie, really, to be honest. Probably the thing I hate the most about it, because Trinity, who, of course, you know, temporarily got killed in Reloaded, but brought by Neo, is unfortunately killed again. And compared to Reloaded, which is actually quite an emotional death scene, really, but, you know, Neo saved her life, though. This film, in my opinion, didn't really execute her death very well because it literally dragged on for like about 5 minutes and didn't really sound like she was dying, really, to be honest, which is a bit of a shame. And also as well, there's also no bad quality with regards to as well, you know, the proximate scene, because you can clearly see Neo moving the fake poles which have been, you know, stuck to her, impaled. Yeah, which is a big shame, really. Yeah, so that was definitely an error with the production there. And also as well, this also means the poster for the film is also very misleading because, right, notice how in the poster you can see Trinity and Morpheus in the rain. Well, that never happened in the film because Trinity, of course, died before Neo went back to Matrix to fight Smith. And Morpheus, of course, wasn't even in the Matrix after he, of course, rescued Neo because he stayed to, you know, aid him in the Battle of Zion. So, yeah, very misleading right there indeed. And also, what the clothing they wear in the Matrix, you know, their black suits, is barely in the movie at all, really, which is a big shame, really. Like, because this is supposed to be a Matrix film, guys, and there's barely any scenes, you know, with the characters wearing their, you know, iconic black costumes, really, which is a shame, really. Yeah, I didn't really like that, to be honest, and I also well feel that sometimes the pacing can be a bit slow at times, because this film is 2 hours and 9 minutes, and sometimes the pacing can be a bit slow, which is disappointing, really, because it can feel longer than it actually is sometimes, really. And yeah, and despite the fact that I think the ending is somewhat decent, a decent way to end the franchise, as I talked about just then, there is one thing that is quite confusing about it, which in my opinion is anticlimactic, because in the scene when Neo's being carried away by machines, you can see his point of view with the gold vision, the vision of the One. But I'm thinking, you know, isn't Neo supposed to have died? Isn't he supposed to sacrifice his life? Why can we see his point of view? What's going on? And then that's it. We never see Neo again. So, yeah, I don't understand really what's going on with it. Like, you know, was he actually dead or not? So that was kind of anticlimactic. So, like, if I was to edit a movie, I'd probably cut that bit out, really, because it was not needed. So, and I like to pretend that he has sacrificed his life, really. So, yeah, because I always like to pretend that Pierce Directions, which account which in my opinion was garbage, it did not exist. So, yeah. So the ending, in my opinion, was quite anticlimactic. So, yeah, when it comes to this film, really, I didn't really like, of course, how Trinity died a second time, which made her being saved and Reloaded pointless. So they could have probably just, you know, killed her permanently and Reloaded, really, and had Morpheus go with Neo instead, maybe. That would have probably, you know, increased the tension of the film, really, to be honest. But they shouldn't have killed off a second time, because that really angered me, really. And also, so the Mervyn and Persephone only at the beginning of the movie, they don't appear again. I would have loved it if we had a scene where it shows them being assimilated by Smith, because Smith calls Sati the last exile when he meets her, so that must mean that he's already assimilated to the Mervindian. So I wish we got to see that. That would have been so cool. Like, it would have been cool if this film showed more scenes in the Matrix showing Smith taking it over, because when Neo goes back later to fight him, of course, Smith has already taken over the entire population, which explains why there's a heavy rainfall there and loads of thunderstorms. It's because of the system's failing due to everyone there being Smith. So yeah. So when it comes to his film, guys, you know, I think, you know, it's an underrated film that deserves more love, but, you know, there's loads of bad qualities that I do, however, it's still really, such as that, you know, many of the characters are underused, and also Trinity get killed a second time, and, you know, false advertisement from these posters, of course, and yeah. The pacing can also be slow at times too, in my opinion. And there's also a case of some plot holes too, because Neil Polley didn't even need to go to Machine City to, you know, organise a peace treaty, because Neil has the code the architect wanted. So he could have, you know, communicated this via radio to machines, couldn't he? Like, he doesn't attempt this, and of course, he goes there in the logos, and of course, Trinity dies. So yeah, ouch. Also as well, early in this movie, at the start of the movie, Commander Locke is stressing the importance of destroying the digging machines, you know, when we've got 12 hours before the attack begins, of course. But nothing happens, no effort is made to do so. So that's disappointing, really. Yeah. It's just disappointing, really, how there's some plot holes in this, but nonetheless, for, you know, as well, this movie is still, you know, a decent way to wrap up the story. And yeah, but there was some missed opportunities, like I've said, you know, with those plot holes. They could have, you know, easily, you know, stopped some bad things happening. And some characters are also absent as well, from who appeared in Reloaded. For example, the upgraded agents don't appear, which is a shame. And also, the twins, you know, the two ghost characters don't appear either. So I can probably, you know, confirm that they both got killed from the car explosion on the highway and Reloaded. But yeah. Nonetheless, I still think Matrix Revolutions is an underrated conclusion, and I like to call it a conclusion because I like to pretend this is the end of a franchise. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, guys, it's the end of a franchise. And if you want to know why, in my opinion, it did not need a sequel, then check out the episode about it in the movie didn't need a sequel. So yeah. So guys, if you wonder what I would give a Matrix Revolutions out of 10, well, after last night's rewatch, I now appreciate this movie a lot more than I used to, and I now give it a much higher score than I used to in my ranking, which I believe was a 6 out of 10. Whereas now, guys, I now give Matrix Revolutions a very solid 7 out of 10, because I think it's underrated and deserves more love. So yeah, and of course, guys, as far as I'm concerned, there is only the 3 Matrix movies, just 3. And there's no way I'm ever going to buy Resurrections. Revolutions, to me, is where a franchise truly ended. And in my opinion, it doesn't deserve the hate. And I will always do a marathon of the first 3 films, no matter what. To me, there's only 3 films only, and that's it. So, guys, this is me doing my review for Matrix Revolutions. So, you know, drill, guys. Be sure to give this video a like. Also, drop a comments what you guys think of Matrix Revolutions in the comments below. Also, be sure to join Team Power by pressing subscribe and in the future. If you'd like to remember, you can press on your piece out or your description. And free your mind.